Hello, everybody. Eric with Oakland Tobacconist, and thank you for joining us. Hey, Brian, how's it going? First to join on. Thank you so much for joining us for a very special episode. This is OGT Live, episode 6, and we have a very special guest tonight with us, which is Mike Rosales from Roma Craft Tobacco. So as we're starting to set up and starting to open up the live, go ahead and drop in the chat what it is with us smoking. Which is Mike Rosales from Roma Craft. Let us know what you are drinking. I'd love to know both the pairing and see what that's all about. We're going to have some other people join us. Tonight, I'm actually going to be smoking one of the cigars in our sampler pack, which is the Neanderthal. This is the HN, so it's a 5x56, almost figurado shape, and it's definitely on the full-bodied side. Now, if you do not know, inside the description of this video, we have our Roma Craft sampler pack. Make certain that you check it out. It is a great sampler pack. It's what we call the perfect lineup. You have mild to medium to full, 5 different cigars, one great price, and where you don't have many of them. So if you get a chance, go ahead and click on that. Go ahead and purchase your sampler. We'll get that out to you before the show is over. We won't get them out before the show's over, but we'll make sure that you have one by the show's over. But with this Neanderthal, we're actually going to be pairing it with a bit of Peat Monster, which is a Scotch. And if you have not had it, it's done by Compass Box. So we're going to see how these go together. Some of them are they're both kind of strong. Both have quite a bit of strength to it. So we're going to go ahead and see how that goes together. Once again, inside the comments, go ahead and drop down what it is you're smoking, what it is you're drinking. I would love to hear. I'm going to go ahead and get this toasted up. I actually already cut it. For those who have not smoked the Neanderthal, kind of has sort of a stark edge to the cap right there. You can kind of see that right there. And because of that stark edge, I don't want to actually screw up the cutting of this cigar on the live video. So I decided to go ahead and cut it off. And it cut perfectly. So we're going to go ahead and get this toasted up. As I say, this is definitely on the full-bodied side, but that's typically how I like it. Mexican San Andreas wrapper. It's going to have a bit of chocolate to it, a bit of cocoa to it, a bit of earth. Perfect. I see other people are joining us. Go ahead and drop down in the comments what it is you're smoking, what it is you're drinking. I'd love to know. We're going to have Mike join us very shortly. The draw is perfect. Believe it or not, this is the first cigar of the day so far for me. So perfect draw, perfect light. For me, the Neanderthal definitely has a cocoa element to it. Definitely some of that chocolate and espresso. Hey, Adam, how's it going? So you have some of those notes coming out immediately from the light up. This is not one of those cigars that is you have to wait for it to warm up at all. It's immediately a burst of flavor as soon as you jump in. All right. So as I say, we're going to have Mike Rosales joining us very shortly. He is one of the gentlemen behind the brand of Roma Craft. Very excited to have him on. I'm very excited to offer our sampler pack. So once again, check that out. The sampler is available in the description of this video. Make certain you get a chance to check that out. But with that, without further ado, we have had Roma Craft a part of Oakland Tobacconist for about a year now. We added it about a year ago. It's phenomenal. We've done certain tastings. We've done tastings for the Neanderthal. We've done tastings for the Toro Cro-Magnon, the 6x54. Phenomenal cigars. Typically, and I believe it as well, I get a lot of our community, Oakland Tobacconist community, tell me how much Roma Craft smokes above its price points, which is very clear in the cigar and the quality of the tobacco. So we're very excited to have Mike join us tonight so we can learn a bit more about the brands and a bit more. So without further ado, we're going to have Mike Rosales go ahead and join us on Oakland Tobacconist Live. Hey, how's it going? How's it going?
Hey, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Doing good. Doing good. I want to just make sure that you can hear me all right.
Yeah, no problem. I got John DeOliver over here working on some technical stuff but for right now, we're going to, you got me, and I'm going to come into the other room so that way there's no interference. And, but yeah, so I didn't catch what you were pairing. And I know you have the Neanderthal, but what are you drinking with it?
Tonight, I decided to go with something equally strong. It's the Peat Monster by Compass Box.
Okay.
I don't know if you've tried anything by Compass Box. It's sort of a blended Scotch.
Okay, I'm not familiar with it. No.
Have you had?
But I'm a bourbon guy, so
Okay. Okay.
yeah, I'm not much of I'm not into peaty stuff. I'll put that
Gotcha.
way.
Yeah. Well, and as I understand it, you have quite the bourbon library. Is that right?
That's what they say. That's what they say. I'm it's funny because it started off with me just trying to trace down one bottle called the William LaRue Weller, which is out of the I'm being waved over there. Sorry.
No worries.
So it's out of the antique collection, and the problem is that nobody wants to sell you the one bottle. I mean, it's just like any of the limited edition stuff, right? Like whenever it's like they have to buy hundreds and hundreds of bottles, cinnamon Fireball and whiskey vodka and all this other stuff to get to the point to where they can get a bottle of William LaRue Weller. And so it started off with me just trying to, so just for everybody's kind of reference, this is the bottle. So Sam and Rosie at a Fine Ash down in Arizona, they had three bottles came to the state, and at the time I wasn't even drinking. And he goes, "You got to try it. You got to try it. You got to try it." And so finally I'm like, "Just give me the damn glass." And so I'm like, "Wow, that's impressive." And so then it quickly turned into some of this.
Oh wow!
Beer.
Yeah.
And then we've always had a good beer selection, right? So this is the craft beer stuff, and crazy thing about craft beer is it's kind of exploded. So I don't even really chase down any of that stuff. Not that it's not good, but it's just on a whole nother level.
Right.
And then back here is which is really kind of cool because if somebody comes over and they're looking for something that they've never had, then I'm always willing to crack something open and say, hey, let's check it out, right? So I mean, So I mean, I've got a small problem. So
now I got to ask, because myself, I tend to normally gravitate towards Scotch, but we do a lot of pairings together with bourbons. There is actually a bourbon that's on my list. It's fairly easy to get a hold of. It's just one I haven't actually taken the plunge yet. Have you tried Kentucky Owl?
Yeah, I've got some bottles of Kentucky Owl. I think it's highly overrated.
Okay.
To be honest.
Yeah.
Are we ready to make a switch?
Yeah. If you'd like, I can switch you over to your other area.
Okay. Well, let me get a glass, and I'm gonna. I guess we're gonna do this. We'll drink with you. No, it's not a. We're gonna crack into some of this. This is. You want some time?
So for those watching, just joined on, we have Mike Rosales live with us. I believe he's at Roma Craft headquarters right now. We have created a Roma Craft sampler that is available on our website. If you get a chance, click on the link in the video. It will direct you to our sampler pack. It's an amazing lineup and an amazing way to explore the brand. So, all right, Mike, then I'll go ahead and switch you over to where John's at if you'd like. I can see him over there, and then we'll go live there. How's it going?
Is that better? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you all right.
Audio's okay?
Yep, audio's good.
Can you hear me, Mike? I can't hear you.
Yeah.
So, John, I've talked to you on the phone a number of times, but I've actually never met you before. So, good to finally meet you. And tonight we're exploring some of Roma Craft's best lines. I am actually smoking the Neanderthal. Looks like we have Francis Lee saying, going to smoke a Neanderthal LH after dinner here shortly. I know for some people I've talked to, the Neanderthal tends to be really, really strong for people. Me personally, it's right in the wheelhouse. Mexican San Andreas wrapper, definitely an awesome cigar to go ahead and light up and try, especially right after dinner. And John, what are you smoking tonight?
I am back to my go-to. This is where they kind of smoke first thing in the morning and then
Okay.
in the back around.
what's funny is I don't know if people know, but Ecuadorian Connecticut actually pairs really well with some really higher fruit bourbons.
Really?
You got both of us in the screen. You can see
I
everybody.
can. It's a little quiet, but I can still hear you guys.
Okay. We just want to make sure that the audio is okay. The camera's a little away from us.
Gotcha. And so actually, I forgot to ask Mike, what are you lighting up tonight?
No, I've got the same thing, the brotherly kindness. The Ecuador, Connecticut, for me and remember, we smoke pretty much all day, right? So
Yeah.
when we sat down and talked about, this cigar particularly, at the time we just had Cro-Magnon and Cro-Magnon Aquitaine. And so when we were going into stores, it's a heavier cigar, right? So when we sat down and kind of talked about the Ecuador, Connecticut and the Brazilian Arapidaca, the Brazilian BA, it was really something that still had some taste. Wasn't necessarily super, ridiculous in the body, but you could smoke kind of throughout the day, all the time. And so, luckily, it's probably one of the best. It's strong enough to keep your attention, but it doesn't wreck your butt, right? And so, it pairs really well with, like I said, I think the proof on this is 120. Yeah, this is 128.
Okay.
So to pair with the Connecticut shade wrapper is really one of those things that it really complements. Like it doesn't try to overpower. It actually enhances a lot of the flavors and both the bourbon as well as the cigar. And it's just like I said, it's one of those for us. I think it's something that we smoke quite a bit.
Okay. So one of the questions I want to ask is that I'm somewhat familiar, but I don't know if everyone else is, sort of the origin of the name Roma Craft and where it comes from. And when exactly did the company materialize? Like when did you guys start out?
Yeah, so Roma, R and M are both capital. So it's basically the fusion of both my last name, Rosales, and Skip Martin, my business partner, Chief Abbott. The MA from his first name or his last name and combined to create Roma.
Okay.
And we got together in 2010 and started kind of working on this project and launched officially in Orlando in 2012.
Okay. And when you first launched, did you launch with a full portfolio? Did you only launch with a few lines? Like what did that look like?
At that time, we had Cro-Magnon was the cigar that really kind of brought it all together.
Okay.
And from after Cro-Magnon, how it kind of came about. So Skip had a shop in Galveston out here in Texas on the Gulf, and he also worked with Dell and was kind of doing both, kind of working out of the shop. Mostly his calls were at nighttime. From a global perspective. Anyway, so his shop was hit by a hurricane, and then he was looking at kind of what's plan B. He was looking at opening up a store here in Austin, and at the time, I was importing in tobacco and putting cigar rollers in stores, and was kind of going that path. And we had kind of met up, became really in the same circles, right? We kind of, here in Austin, Central Texas kind of area.
Yeah.
Charlie Chirano was doing a tour. Raul, one of the rollers who runs NATSA, who does a lot of stuff with Steve Socken now, was one of the rollers that worked for me here in Texas. And Charlie came into town, and I think at that moment it was kind of like this aha moment for Skip, and the fact that I wasn't just some guy that had some tobacco that was trying to actually people within the industry, because at that time in Galveston, he wasn't really aware of the cigars that we were making and what was going on, right? So it was really this. So fast forward, he kind of brought over some cigars that he was buying from Christian Aurora whenever they owned Camacho, and he, there was a house blend that they had, and he really enjoyed, and he'd asked me if we could make something like it. So kind of fast forward, without kind of getting into a lot of it, we worked on it, and Esteban Gisla, who is partners with us and owns half of the factory, is Raul's brother. And so, I called down to Nicaragua and said, hey, this is kind of what we're working with. We went down and basically got to the kind of a starting point, and then kind of finished up with what was Cro-Magnon.
Okay.
So Skip's like, yeah, let's do 10,000 cigars. So one of the perks of working with Skip is he had a large Twitter following, and guys that would come into Galveston would register and keep up, to what was going on, because at that time there was no Facebook and Twitter. It was Facebook and Instagram. It was more MySpace, I think, and right. And so, but anyways, because of the hurricane, people were kind of asking like questions, and he was doing a really good job of keeping people informed of what was going on the island, and power lines down, evacuations and those types of things. And so, anyways, he had a really good following. So whenever we got to the point of just kind of talking about the cigar and kind of putting it out there, guys were like, "Hey, I'll buy a 5-pack," right? And so that 5,000 cigars just blew out the door. He had his kids over there. They were stuffing envelopes, and I was calling people to get their information and through it. And he said, "Okay, this is January 2011. By the time that the actual cigars came in, and then so January, February, March, April, May, we were doing 10,000 cigars a month, direct to consumers." And so, anyways, whenever I get a phone call from Esteban saying there's no more broadleaf, and from that point it was like, Skip didn't quite understand. It's like, why don't you just go buy some? And what ends up happening is kind of in this December, January, all the stuff comes out of the colognes, and that's what people kind of take their bales of tobacco, and so there wasn't any more left over to kind of to go pick up. There wasn't anything left over. So, so we get in an airplane, we go down to Nicaragua, and we start looking at it. And at that point, we went and looked at some Habano, which became Aquitaine.
Yeah.
At the same time, we needed cigars that, we knew right away that we were going to have challenges with broadleaf just because of the a lot of tobacco. And so we started looking at, Brazilian Arapiraca in Connecticut as something that we could get all the time that can make a really good product at a fair price that, we can constantly kind of put out there. And so that's when the conversation kind of came up about having a cigar that we can kind of pair, with other types of,
Yeah. Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, like starting out with something like Cro-Magnon, to me, it kind of seems like there's two challenges or hurdles you would have to get over. One is it seems like a medium plus the full-bodied cigar, which for a first offering, it's somewhat of a bold move, it seems like. And two, it's a Connecticut broadleaf, which seems notorious for having shortages in tobacco. So
we were talking about the craft beer earlier, right? And to the craft beer at that time. So there's some guys down here local called Jester King Brewery that are really well known for their sours. And what they're really well known for is their fermentation process of trying different types of yeast in this kind of open air, starting out to kind of see like where the bottle goes. So for us at the time, no one had done Cameroon and broadleaf. No one had done the Brazilian and Indonesian at the time. And so there was really this kind of, how do we kind of pick from the craft beer and some of the things that they had done that we thought were really cool and kind of bring them over into the cigar industry. Now, a lot of people will tell you Cameroon and broadleaf are the two most expensive types of tobacco, right? So put out a cigar at the price point that we do with the types of tobacco that we use is unheard of.
Yeah. Now, really quickly, John, how did you get involved with Roma Craft? Like, where'd that start from?
From I want to say 2014 through the end of 2018. So I was actually I've been in since 2013 in general in cigars and either tobacconist or as a rep. So 2014 I started working for House of Emilio at the time, now Boutiques United or Unified. And then in summer of 2015 ended up going to Zycar.
Oh, okay.
With Zycar up until the end of 2018. And then at end of 2018, just so happened that, these guys, the timing was working out. I was on my way out, and these guys were looking for somebody to step in here. So
yeah.
But I've known these guys since the beginning of me getting into the industry. Been friends with them, since then. And every time I would come to Austin, I would always end up here. So it ended up working out perfectly.
Yeah.
And, everything worked out. So here we are.
Awesome. Now with the blends, I know you said you're smoking the Intemperance. So we go from Cro-Magnon and Aquitaine, and then from there, where did the brand go? Did it go into the Connecticut Intemperance, or is that the BA?
Yeah. So I think kind of your original question, I kind of derailed a little bit. You asked me like what were the offerings, and so a couple things happened. A lot of the retail channel here in Texas that has supported me with the cigar rollers, when we came out with Cro-Magnon, because it was kind of direct to consumer initially, had asked me about this cigar, right? And it technically wasn't my cigar to offer them. It was really something, it was a project that I was doing kind of for Skip, even though I was kind of managing that process, right? Initially. Mm-hmm. So when we sat down and kind of talked about what does this look like, I was like, hey, I'm starting to get phone calls from people who were saying they wanted to bring it in, right? Because it was rated, the knuckle dragger, Cro-Magnon knuckle dragger got rated to 92 with no band, early on.
Yeah. Wow.
Back when we didn't have bands, so whenever that was.
Yeah.
So when we kind of talked about it was, you can't just kind of say, here's my one cigar or two cigars, right? You had to have a portfolio. So
right.
So when we went and selected out the Habano, we went ahead and selected out the Brazilian and the Connecticut shade. And then they basically told us we would have to wait. So this is in May of 2011. They said, this will be ready at the end of the year, right?
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah.
So at that time, what we decided to do was we finished the building out this factory behind Esteban's house, and finished that, and basically it was kind of a waiting game until the tobacco came out, which was kind of end of December, first part of January. So the cigars that we started making January 2012 were the cigars that we kind of were ramping up to kind of launch at the XDR trade show in Orlando, that eventually kind of got out into the marketplace kind of end of 2012, right? So at that point, then we had Cro-Magnon Octane, the Intemperance ECBA, and that was kind of the initial. So we started out with about 35, 40 accounts.
Okay.
And over the next 2 or 3 months, kind of as we got more product in, kind of opened up the next set and just kind of grew from there.
So with the partnership of with Skip, what are like the dynamics of like the roles? Like, are you influencing the graphic design side of it at all? Do you have any?
I let Skip do all that, right? Because I think
okay.
Skip is really one. He's super analytical, and attention to detail is higher than most. Where I my kind of skill set is kind of working with the retail channels and the consumers, right? So. So the way that it kind of works is I manage kind of the HQ.
Okay.
Esteban, the way it's set up, runs the factory, and then Skip is kind of like this kind of this middleman that kind of manages the two as far as forecasting, planning, budgeting, kind of the higher level type of things that, which at the time was something that I really needed, right? Because I was when I had the rollers, I was managing multiple rollers, here in Texas, and then I also had a real estate company, and it just got to the point to where I didn't have the time to do a lot of the stuff, and so, anyways, it just was basically it was a godsend in the fact that he was, when you look at the pie, when you divide up the pie, he's really good at this side, and I'm really good at this really other side, and so we don't really kind of compete on each other. We just kind of stay in our lanes and do what we do, right? So
yeah. Okay.
So with John and Sean and Jamie here. Danny Vasquez used to work here, but he's recently left to kind of do his own thing. But realistically, I mean, it's. Is there anything else on this?
No, I mean, Mike and I handle working with all the retailers across the country, and then Sean and Jamie handle kind of logistics for the warehouse.
Okay.
Report,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a very small crew. I think a lot of people are surprised when they come to the HQ and
Right.
and when we tell them you're looking at the pretty much the entire company.
Yeah.
It always blows their mind.
Yeah.
But it works.
Well, it was always designed. We knew early on when we sat down and kind of identified like what are some of the things that can really work well, and some things that really hurt you. Like, how do you navigate through kind of the obstacles of kind of starting up a small cigar business, right? And a lot of people jump out and go get reps and brokers right away.
Right.
The challenge with that, I think they're really, for a lot of companies, it's a really good process to kind of go through depending on your production, your capability. But because we'd already stumbled with the broadleaf early on, so it wasn't like, hey, we want to go out and just open a bunch of accounts.
Yeah.
We're kind of saying, how do we sit down and identify the right accounts, right? The shop that get it, that can kind of understand, hand sell the product, that say, hey, this is a company that really kind of curates, from the details to the band to the tobacco that we select to how it gets divvied up and how it goes out. Like, it's like you want a good partnership with somebody who can kind of relay that information and say, hey, you really I know what's in your wheelhouse, and this is in that wheelhouse. Trust me, smoke it, right?
Yeah.
Because early on when we didn't have bands, that's how you had to do it, right? And so
Right.
So it takes a tobacconist, and it also takes somebody who's really bought into what we're doing and trying to do to really kind of make that connection to the end consumer, which is ultimately
Right.
the any cigar company, right? So so it wasn't if I at the time, let's say John's out on the road, I said, John, I want to be in you got Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, whatever, you got 160 accounts, go. I would never have the product to kind of support that kind of early on. And so we really wanted to do this really small, gradual until it just kind of made sense, right? And
Right.
that was really what kind of separated us early on from a lot of companies, because it wasn't something that just kind of, just went out into the marketplace and it was everywhere, right? Like you had to travel to go get it. And the other side of that is one, it gives me a real connection. It gives us a real connection to the retailer and the things that they're going through. And there's a relationship that you can kind of, where your product is at, how it's doing, when it's moving, how it turns, feedback, and you kind of get that instant information, so you kind of know, how to project your business moving forward.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things about Roma Craft, along with the blends being very unique, also like a high attention to detail, are the sizes. I find the sizes really intriguing. Do you guys have, when you're blending something, when you have blended something, do you guys have like a size that you normally blend to, or does that just depend on what tobacco you're using?
Well, I think people would be kind of shocked, right? So the 5 3/4 by 46 is like my jam, right? Like
Okay.
I smoke all the time. But actually, we blend in the 5 by 56. And the reason why, so if you notice, like in every kind of offering that we have the 5 by 56 kind of. That is the size that we typically will blend in, because it's probably the truest to the intention of what we're trying to create. Meaning, if you're a Lancero guy or you're a smaller gauge guy, you get so much of the wrapper when you're smoking a cigar that it's going to taste good, because most wrapper is if it's good wrapper, it's going to taste. You're going to get that.
Right.
However, if you're not necessarily comfortable with smoking larger cigars and kind of work your way backwards, and you get a blend or you get something that's really good in that blend, then that it's kind of out of your wheelhouse and it's really good. So So that was something that works for us, and
Okay.
which probably why we go through a lot of these brotherly kindness and breaches.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and along with that too is like you can definitely see the passion behind. One of the biggest things we talk about here at our shop is a lot of the labeling, what the labels look like, what the boxes look like, and Roma Craft is inevitably going to come up within those conversations. And the typical response is that the simplicity works. It gets across what it needs to. And something like you see like the Neanderthal, for example, the band is beautiful. And then you also have this like hybrid figurado shape with like this dome, like flathead top that just kind of basically wraps all together to basically explain itself what Roma Craft is. And it's something that I appreciate, at least even from the eye, before you even light it up.
Yeah. No, the H end is actually, it is a figurado just chopped up.
Okay.
So it's made in that size, and then that's how you get the flat cap. And,
Interesting. Okay. So, and in our shop, we carry the full Intemperance lineup, as well as the Cro-Magnon, the Aquitaine, the Neanderthal. The Whiskey Rebellion, though, that came out of a blend you guys were doing with Cigar Dojo, correct?
yeah, kind of. So Eric at Dojo had approached us and said he wanted to try to do something. And we had an idea specifically for, so the Intemperance line is basically a play on prohibition, right? And
Okay.
so there was this concept of, how do we bring in some other kind of offerings that kind of still carry the theme of prohibition. And so anyway, so they, Skip kind of came up with the Whiskey Rebellion, which was a part of history. And they loved the idea. So we, at the time, the partner that was willing to sell it was Famous Cigar Shop, right? And so we did 500 boxes, and it sold in about 52 minutes, right? So, one of the most successful dojo offerings, from my understanding.
Okay.
Right. So anyway, so it came in and had kind of gone. Famous had approached us about trying to carry. Not necessarily that size, but carry the line, and because they were still getting phone calls about, hey, what's the opportunity? So we went ahead and kind of launched the line from that. So it was an exclusive for Famous for quite some time, and then about 2 years or so ago, we knew that there was going to be a challenge with the broadleaf. There had been a lot of rain in the Connecticut area,
Okay.
that really caused a lot of damage to the available types of tobacco that were coming out. So we had approached Famous about, locking in, the guaranteed pricing to protect it. And then we launched it at the trade show that year as an offering to kind of fill in the gap of not having Cro-Magnon and having a bunch of back orders for,
Right. Okay.
So
Yeah.
kind of the story behind that product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, and I hate to ask this question because I know that it's a tough one to answer. It's kind of like trying to choose which is your favorite children. But do you have a favorite blend out of the run?
Yeah. So for me,
that's on the day, I guess.
it depends on the day, right? So Aquitaine Anthropology is my favorite cigar that we make,
Okay.
hands down. I mean, I don't know. I probably go through a box of those a week by myself. Sean,
Okay.
We got to adjust inventory for Mike's.
So the 4x46s, they can tell you, like I opened up one of each of everything, and we had destroyed.
Yeah.
That was on Monday, and I would say they're halfway gone, which is kind of cool because you get a chance to really go through the whole lineup, and you spend 35, 40 minutes to kind of just kind of check on the blend, make sure that your palate's kind of where you want it to be, and keeps it kind of entertaining, right? So, but as far as I would say, if I had to choose two, it'd be probably the EC Brotherly Kindness of Virtue, Aquitaine Anthropology, Cro-Magnon Knuckle Dragger. The Wanderlust, when we get those, are pretty nice. Bach is really good, but we don't get a lot of those up here.
We end up finding stashes of Wonderlust scattered around the office.
We hide stuff from ourselves. Yeah.
Find some, they'll hide it, and then we'll find another stash. So
Now, John, do you have a favorite out of the lineup?
Yeah, I mean, I lean on BA pretty heavily.
Okay.
So as far as size, Breach of the Peace or Ambition,
Yeah.
whichever one we have access to in the back humidor. That's
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, Breach of the Peace or Ambition, and then EC is right behind it.
Okay.
And Virtue or Brotherly Kindness. Those are kind of our go-tos. And then if we have Aquitaine, if we have Cro-Magnon, if we have some Neanderthal in the back, those are treats. Those are bonus. But for the most part, most of our day is spent in Intemperance.
Okay.
And
Yeah. So
branch out every now and then.
What's the book?
Like Washington.
Yeah, I smoke a lot of Washington.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We're gonna throw a few of those.
For those people just joining,
I'm sorry to interrupt. The wrapper leaf on that blend is the priming of the same Aquitaine or the Habano that we use. So it's so it doesn't make the cut in Aquitaine, goes basically on the whiskey rebellion, right? So it's
interesting. Okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities to that.
Yeah. Awesome. So for those just joining on and watching, if you haven't heard so far, we do have a Roma Craft sample pack, which is in the description of this video. If you click on the link, it'll direct you directly to our website. You can go ahead and pick it up. Amazing blends. It has their 5 cigar lineup. Awesome things to try. I highly recommend it. But actually, that is another question on a lot of the cigars, especially like in the Intemperance line. You see almost like it's barely visible somewhat to the eye, but it's almost an unfinished foot. Is there a reason behind that? Is it more visual than it is tasting, or what's kind of like the thinking behind that?
Yeah, for sure. There's with the Intemperance stuff, BA, EC, Whiskey Rebellion, you're going to see that style foot on there.
Okay.
And the idea behind it is you get to see that transition.
Yeah.
The binder and filler to the wrapper, albeit very short, but you kind of get the light up and then the transition into the wrapper. But it's also to kind of protect the wrapper. So some people will just sit there and toast and toast and toast.
Right.
Through that shaggy foot essentially, and then finally when it lights up and they start puffing, they're hitting the wrapper.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
It's not changing what the wrapper flavor should be. They're able to do that small foot.
Well, we have Jim Dougherty, who watches our show quite often, saying he's actually never had a Roma Craft, but now he's intrigued. So, Jim, you got to try it out. It's definitely cigars that are awesome and above. Now, the one cigar I will say out of our lineup, because I've smoked your guys' stuff back and forth, there isn't one blend I have not enjoyed. Unfortunately, I've only tried the Baca once. I really enjoyed it. How did the evolution of Baca come about? And also, what does the name mean, too, while we're at it?
So, just like kind of Cro-Magnon was the early modern human, right? And so Baca is kind of this indigenous group of the African Cameroon area. So that's where that name
Okay.
Originally, so our friends at Tarano, before they had kind of, so I guess Jack Tarano approached us and said, hey, I'm looking at doing something with Tarano, the general, and what would be the possibility of doing something. So we came up with the idea of, hey, why don't, back in the day, there was the Tarano Cameroon was a really good blend that actually Esteban had helped create whenever he was working with the factory, which was, I guess out of my belief. And so Esteban and his brother Raul came over with Carlos Tarano Sr. and started working when they opened up their factory at Esteli. And during that time, so a lot of the Tarano stuff, Esteban had helped curate and blend for them.
Okay.
We said, well, what about this Cameroon? Like, if you guys let us go pick out out of your tobacco, let us create a blend that we think would be a good representative of that original blend, then we would make it in our factory and you guys can sell it. And it never actually came to fruition because when it was all said and done, Jack ended up leaving Toronto to go work with Espinosa.
Right.
Shortly after, then Espinosa launched their Cameroon rendition for that.
Okay.
So we were left with some different opportunities to kind of create this with vodka. The only thing consistent about Cameroon is that it's inconsistent. If you made a bunch of cigars out of all the tobacco, they're going to have different variations of color and tones, right? So
Yeah.
it's been probably the most challenging, more frustrating because we've only had a handful of sizes come out, 3 sizes.
3 sizes out of what should be, or what will end up being 7 sizes total.
Right. Okay.
The Aquitaine and Cro-Magnon sizes.
Yeah.
So we released 2 originally in 2019, and 1 new size in 2020 with a repeat of a previous size from 2019. So
Okay.
3 individual sizes have been released so far. And then this year, we're working on more.
Okay. And I know sizes deal a lot with like your limited renditions. Like currently, what we have in stock is also the EC Goodness, which is a phenomenal box press size.
That's the same what we're smoking, except for you have a square version to our circular version.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just the Brotherly Kindness box press.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And I know for personally here too, like the cranium for the Cro-Magnon seems to be the pet size for Cro-Magnon. People like that long smoke. And I remember what we do here at the shop is we'll do formal tastings. So we'll get a cigar in and we'll say, hey, this is something special. We'll do a small private event and we'll pair it with some kind of whiskey, a bourbon or a scotch, something like that, and we'll try it all together. The cranium, when everyone was smoking, we're halfway through and people are like, this is way above this price point. Like this cigar should retail for around $20. And it's like, well, it's never even close to that. So it's
California prices, sure.
Right.
well, yeah, true. Well, even out here, like with California tax and all that, you're looking at around $13 to $14 after tax, all said and done. But still, it's smoking way above its price point.
Well, that was something that we said on earlier. Is how do you create, which goes back to why we don't have any brokers or reps, right? So, how do you keep a certain price point threshold?
Yeah.
By doing everything ourselves, by maintaining the costs lower, then we can kind of pass on that savings to the end consumer.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times we get phone calls from retailers who will call us and go, "You should raise your prices." And
Wow.
what's interesting is because so let's say you're a consumer, no one's in the humidor, and you go inside, but you've heard people talk about the brand, and then you see these prices, that are lower by $2 or $3 than everything else, kind of in that same category. Right. Then it's like, well, how could it be for that?
Right.
Now, if you attend people and you go into the humidor and you help them pick and you help them curate, some offerings, then those things kind of are negated, right? But the reality is not everybody gets help when they go into the humidor.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that disconnect sometimes. But we've always kind of set out, like, how do you make a cigar that should be at this higher threshold, but really kind of offer it at this kind of, because I'm a consumer. We're all consumers. Like if you go back there in the back of the cabinet,
a box of Aquitaine in almost a week, I'd say so.
But the reality is that we smoke everybody's stuff, right? We've got stuff from Padron and Davidoff, Fuente to Ward to Viaje. We've got Saka stuff. I've got Robert Holt stuff. But we've got a variety. I've got Osaka stuff. We have a wide variety of cigars that we'll go out and buy just to try them out, right? And I'm a fan of a lot of stuff that's out there. So I'm a consumer, So when we sit down and smoke, like my just like you guys, I sit down and go, okay, what do you think? What do you think? What would you pay for that? What's a fair price for that?
Yeah.
And you know, it's funny because what ends up happening is we always end up going back to our stuff and go, man, you know, it's hard to beat. It's so hard to beat for what you get and for the price point. And that's kind of the
right.
But again, you want to put out the very best product that's affordable, that you can repeat, that you can sustain, that the consumer feels like I get more bang for my buck with this than anything else, which has really, again, created, you know, this Weasel Team 6 kind of following that you know, I never thought was going to ever happen, right? But it's all kind of that price point for what you get and the value.
Right. Well, and a lot of new customers that'll come into the shop that have the occasional cigar, like the once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, and they'll like their bigger brands and stuff like that. And we're more of a boutique shop. And so when Roma Craft comes up, when I direct them towards that, it's what I try to get them in the mindset, kind of how you touched on earlier, is that it's kind of like craft brewing. Like, yes, you know of bigger brands, but there is a quality to it that is unlike most others, and it's definitely something you should try and enjoy. And sure enough, it's I'm a Cro-Magnon smoker now. I'm a BA smoker now, and people gravitate towards it. It's really having that relationship with getting people to try it, and that's the first threshold to cross.
Well, you know, there's a book called The Trusted Advisor, right? And the Trusted Advisor is, like for example, like if you had to get your taxes done, you would talk to your accountant, right? Or if you had a tooth problem, you go talk to your dentist. And you know, those. So the tobacconist for us is that trusted advisor. And, I mean, you probably know this more than anybody. People come in and say, "Hey, what am I smoking today?"
Yeah.
They ask you that, you know what I like, just go pick out a cigar, and that goes back to, hey, I know this is in your wheelhouse, right? Smoke this, right? And so that to me, you know, when you build that credibility, the responsibility that we take is, one, I want to make sure that the cigar is consistent.
Yeah.
Right? There are no issues. Right. And so, like, one of the biggest compliments I get all the time is like, I don't have to worry when I recommend your cigars. Like, I don't have to worry about it blowing up or tunneling or having any kind of issues because of how consistent it is. And I hear that all the time, right? Which means that if I'm handing this over to you as a trusted advisor, as a tobacconist, to really put this out to other people, then I want to make sure you don't look like a jackass whenever, you know, you recommend something, because if
right,
then they're not asking you for that help anymore.
Right. Well, and I remember I was talking to someone else who had a sort of a larger presence, larger shop, and they had said, well, you know what, the thing is that, well, boutique blends is they're great, but I don't have time to talk to everybody that comes in and try to sell them on a cigar, which there's an element of truth to that. To me, though, if you don't have that on a normal basis, the job gets really boring. Like, the reward is when you can have a relationship, you can talk to your customers, and you make that recommendation, and they're, hey, I'm back for another Cro-Magnon, or I'm back for another one of those, because it's a win, and you see their palate expand, you see it evolve, and it's just, it's a great reward.
Sure. I mean, if everyone came in, if you had a restaurant and everyone said every day all they wanted was, you know, bone and ribeye, right? But in your mind, you know, you're thinking about, you know, you have all these other offerings other than the bone and ribeye.
Right.
As kind of a chef or an artist, you would probably get a little frustrated because the short rib is good, or your fish is really, whatever it is, right? Like, and so one of the challenges, like, and I know a lot of people are kind of they kind of get stuck on the same thing, and there's nothing wrong with things. I think we're all kind of creatures of habit to a certain extent, right? Mm-hmm. When you kind of look at, especially like in our office, like we have a variety of things that you know would surprise a lot of people, that if they just tried it and just had an open mind. You know, it's easy to say Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal because they're heavy, they're full-bodied, they get your attention. Right. It's just like, boom, hit you in the face. taste and flavor, and it just satisfies you, right? But then we also make these other cigars, like you mentioned Baca. Like there's a lot of guys that were like, they really thought Baca was going to be like this really strong, powerful Cameroon, which, for us was an opportunity to say, can we make a cigar that's more reminiscent of things that we grew up on, that really had a lot of depth and flavor, but not necessarily in the strength and body.
Right. Well, and I even think you guys hit a home run in the Whiskey Rebellion. I mean, the Whiskey Rebellion is like one of our top selling SKUs out of the entire lineup. And I think too that name catches people, and then you try it, and it's definitely more accessible to those who can't handle the full-bodied cigar. But you also get that taste of Roma Craft when you're trying it. So it's kind of a really good like meet in the middle type of cigar.
Right. Well, that's again, that's one of the reasons we lean on Intemperance so heavily. If we were just to smoke Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal, our palate would end up burned out. Like cigars, and that would be it for the day. But with the Intemperance stuff, we can kind of, we can jump from brand to brand. Mix in Intemperance with the Cro-Mag stuff, and it doesn't burn out the palate.
And with your guys' brand, a question I also have out of curiosity is your insignia, the symbol of Roma Craft, is pretty striking. It's very recognizable. Where does that come from?
Yeah, so we're based out of Texas. So it's basically a TX for Texas. Kind of everyone knows that there's a lot of manufacturers that are based out of Florida, and so we really wanted to kind of put a stamp on Texas. That's where we are. That's where we're from.
Yeah.
That's kind of the story of that, and I get into like where we got it from, but we'll say that for another conversation.
Okay, awesome. Now, and then your headquarters is in Austin, correct?
Yep.
And it's more of a destination point because, as I understand it, because you have all of your lineup, and then you also have a huge side that's the beer side, craft brewery side, right? And who brings that influence in?
Well, I think the craft beer stuff has kind of been with us ever since we kind of got going, right?
Okay.
And again, back in 2010, 2011, that was like at the infancy of kind of this craft beer movement that's kind of happened. Now, it's exploded so much that you can't kind of keep up with all the offerings that these guys can pump out. But but I think both Skip and I. Skip probably drinks a lot more beer than I do.
Okay.
But really, again, all the things that we kind of curate and purchase here, like we're not open to the public. So if people show up and visit and do the tour and kind of hang out or whatever, like they're welcome to drink whatever we have. As long as it's not on the wall or it's not a sealed bottle, like we'll get into it.
We got the fancy stuff, up out of the way. But
mainly because I'll open it if I can reach it. You know what I mean? Like,
it's the craft aspect. It really started with beer. Here in the office, and then that has kind of, like Mike mentioned, it's expanded into everything else that we kind of end up bringing into the office or have here in the office. Whether it's bourbon or coffee or whatever it is, that's the lane that we're in, right? We're looking for the quality. We're looking for, not necessarily the big names, but the guys who are out there essentially doing what Mike and Skip are doing.
I'll give you a really good example. I was on a call the other day. I did a podcast with a lady out of Hawaii that had the hurricane came through in 2018 and basically changed the way that their beans kind of were fermented, right? And it was a one-time kind of deal. They thought that they had lost this crop because of the amount of rain that came through. But what ended up actually happening is that the way that it was in these buckets, like a lot of this flavor actually was penetrated and just got deeper kind of immense. And so when a friend of mine sent me a small tin, like it was like yay big, you probably get maybe 2 or 3 shots of espresso out of it. But I brought my espresso machine up here and poured coffee, and everybody was just like enthralled at how amazing this coffee was. Like it was well balanced. It was these ranges of flavor that you're probably not really kind of expecting from a Hawaiian blend. And so it's the process, right? That's probably why we're super protective of the word craft. Like craft people outside of us and other craft beer people who kind of do it at the scale that we do it at, I think all of it's kind of craft in its own right, meaning, however, the people who, that kind of, if you went into a leather guy that's been making shoes and was a cobbler his whole life, and that was his craft, probably means a lot more. That word means a lot more to him than came out and said, "Here's our craft series," and they slapped it out there as kind of a marketing gimmick, right? And that's where a lot of this stuff kind of gets. We go out of our way, like the wood that we have here is custom made. The tables, the desks, like there's an idea and concept. And yeah, we could have gone to IKEA and slapped some stuff together or whatever, but we really wanted to kind of embrace that term of, can we go out and source people that make everything, that don't have a bunch of machinery, that don't, do volume and kind of this mass, production kind of stuff, and really, tie into what we're trying to do with our brand, which was, we only make 1 million cigars, which sounds like a lot, but it's really, it's really not. I think Drew Estate's probably doing, 45, 50 million cigars a year.
Right.
So, we're a percentage of a fraction of what they do. And there are guys who are smaller than us, and there are guys that are bigger, and they all make cigars in their own way. And that's and I think it's a craft kind of thing. But when people slap it in as kind of their marketing kind of ploy, just to kind of throw it out there to get people to buy into something, that's where we kind of take offense to it, because it's it's different at that point.
Yeah, no, and it definitely comes through. The meaning of craft comes through in your cigars on a level that may not be as prominent in other cigars as well. So a question I do ask most of our manufacturers that we carry, or companies we carry, is when you first got into the industry, what was one of the first cigars that you tried? Like, do you remember trying a cigar and being like, okay, this is something different. This is something that's really pulling me to this, before you even started?
Well, before I started, I want to say one of the very first cigars I had was in 2000 when I graduated from college. And I think it was one of the Hoyas from Nicaragua.
Okay.
That I remember smoking at graduation night, with my pops.
Yeah.
One of the first cigars that actually stood out to me that was completely different and unique, that because I had tried to dabble and kind of grew, but I want to say around 2006, 2007, Jay Fuego had a cigar called Origins that was phenomenal.
Okay.
At that time, there was another guy out of Costa Rica that I'm drawing blanks tonight. He had a cigar that CAO had also had a name that's very similar to it. I just went blank. But anyways, he was Pepin Garcia of the early, late 1990s to 2000s. Tony Perhano.
Okay.
And his stuff was amazing, right? So, so that to me is definitely. Some cigars that I remember kind of growing up. The Trapezoid, I want to say the Max that Alec Bradley had done a long time ago. There's a bunch of cigars that you kind of smoke. When Tatuaje launched the brown label, that was one of the years. Yeah. I remember we bought a pack of from Dan when I don't know if he still has his website. With the pork tenderloins and pork chops that early 2008, 2009, those were phenomenal. So,
okay, yeah. And John, what was yours? What kind of brought you into recognizing cigars?
Man, I really only started smoking maybe 10 years ago.
Okay.
Maybe a little less. So when I came in, the bourbon hit Mike a little too hard just there. So, but when I started smoking, I was all over the board.
Okay.
I was trying everything, big name brands, some of the boutique brands that were out at the time, Illusion, Tatuaje. I'd say pretty quick, I got wrapped into the boutique world.
Okay. Yeah.
Right off the bat.
Yeah.
Kind of drew me in. I was smoking the unbanded stuff from these guys, back then, 2012, 2013. And that's kind of what launched me into it. So I was smoking that stuff before I even knew really what it was.
Yeah.
But, just when I started smoking, the timing, what was happening with boutiques, that's really what got me in.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, case in point, the first company I really started working for was House of Amelia.
Yeah.
All boutique.
Right.
It threw me into that world. And then from there, when I jumped over to Zycar, I mean, anytime I was out on the road, I was picking up Roma stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
The 601 box press blue label. Back whenever Espinosa and Ortega were together, that was a great.
Okay. Well,
I took a bigger gulp of that bourbon. Like I said, it was like the bottom of it. There was a lot more of it than I thought there was.
Well, and I know for me, one of like the big cigars that stood out in the beginning was the Tabernacle by Nick Melillo, and that in learning more about the Connecticut broadleaf tobacco that is used, and so when we first brought in Cro-Magnon, it was a definite home run. Like that is what I want in a Connecticut broadleaf, 100%. Like it's creamy, it's cocoa, it's chocolate, it's earthy, and it's great. Yeah. But cool. Well, I'd like to thank you guys for joining us on our channel and spending some time and kind of explaining some of where the brands come from. For those who are watching, if you haven't gotten a chance, click on that link, pick up that sampler. Roma Craft makes amazing stuff. If you have not tried it, you're missing out. I guarantee you'll enjoy it. So,
give me a favor.
Yeah.
Sean, we have a water bottle. Can you grab me a water bottle quick so we can do it? So, we'll do like a little mini event, and you'll have to manage it on our system. Whoever, they buy the sampler, take the name, shuffle them up, pick a winner, let us know who it is. What I'll do is we have these echo vessels, kind of like a Yeti water bottle, heavy duty, laser engraved with the Roma logo.
Okay.
Craft on the side. We'll send them. You just tell me who. We'll send them one of those, T-shirt size, whatever. We'll send them a nice little swag pack. So, we'll put something together really nice.
Yeah.
Who and where, and we'll send it. And but you have to buy the sampler, and whoever buys the sampler, we'll put you in a little swizzler thingy, and then we'll get you taken care of.
Perfect. So you heard it from Mike. Go ahead and pick up that sampler pack. We'll go ahead and put it in a lotto. We'll go ahead and pick out a winner. You'll get the tumbler, somewhat like a Yeti water bottle, as well as a T-shirt. That's awesome.
We'll make it sweet. We'll throw it together in a nice little swag pack.
Yeah. Nice. Well, thank you guys so much, and thank you again for making great blends. This is just phenomenal, and keep up the good work. The last question I will have before I let you guys go, and I know that this is probably something played close to the chest. Do you think 2021 or 2022 we'll be seeing anything new on the horizon coming out?
Yeah, we got some 2021 goodies coming out.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. So, real quick, and we can always talk about this later on, but last year we were going to have something called Weasel Fest here in Austin, which was outside. We were going to have Scarface come and do a performance. It's our 10th anniversary. Barbecue, Garrison Brothers Bourbon, 512 Brewery, a bunch of different people, Valentina Tacos. Anyways, if you ever come to Austin, it's like, Style Switch Barbecue. Just to come eat, smoke, drink, and have a good time. Listen to a great concert, and basically kind of the first smoking concert venue that I know of anyways. And COVID happened, so it got postponed to September, and then it got postponed to May. I feel like May may be a go, and
Okay.
So we always release something unique and special for those types of events. And then, I think later in the year, we're teasing Craft, the new rendition of Craft that's
Craft 2021.
Craft 2021, which is dope, right? Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
The cool thing about this year, because of COVID, the conversation has kind of come up. How do we get people to come back into the store? And I know it's really easy to buy, click, and ship and have something sent to your house, but we want to keep engaging the tobacconist and the consumer in that relationship. So we're trying to come up with something really cool for Craft that can be sold in the store to consumers, not online, and just available in the humidor.
Okay.
So and that'll be, hopefully kind of next June, July, August timeframe.
Okay.
So that's definitely something that we're playing with. And but Stop Smoke _Roma on Instagram. In your IG.
Roma_JDO.
Okay.
Chief Hava is Skip. Lightweight Heavy is Sean in the back. But if you're following any of us, obviously we blast a bunch of stuff out on. I'm not super interactive on Facebook. I hate Facebook, but on Instagram I'm a lot more interactive.
Okay.
So, but like I said, I mean, if you ever want to keep up with like what's going on and what we're doing, then that's probably the best way on Instagram. The easy way to find us probably is to go into Instagram under places in Austin, type in Roma Craft Tobac, and then see the pictures that we tag.
Okay.
This location, and you can probably find us a lot easier that way.
Okay.
But yeah, so I mean, there's some we got some really kind of some cool things kind of cooking that
Yeah.
We're right now we're teasing. It's a little early.
Yeah.
But again, write down to those questions that we didn't answer. If you want to have us back on later on down the road, we're happy to hop on and kind of do an act 2 and follow up of what we talked about tonight. So we're always
Definitely.
looking at things and are there any questions you want to read before we hop off?
On one question I will have is with concerning TPE PCA. Do you think, as your own personal opinion, do you think that is a reality this year? And if so, do you think you guys will attend?
I doubt we'll attend.
Okay.
So we still support IPCBR or whatever it's called nowadays.
PCA.
It'll always be IPCBR to me. Waiting for that, but so we still support. We still pay our dues, but I don't know if this is the year. I think attendance will be really low. I think it'll be. I think people will be excited to go, but I think a lot of retailers across the U.S., if they still have a bunch of inventory, it's not like they're really going to go out there and just buy a bunch of stuff just because there's a deal.
Right.
They have a bunch of inventory, so that's going to be. And I just don't know if people are ready to go out and see other people.
Yeah.
It really all depends on what Vegas looks like with COVID at that
Right.
We see we see the dip in numbers for COVID now, but who knows what it looks like, whether we see another spike. So it's still really up in the air. And I think a lot of retailers are on the fence simply because, a lot of companies, us, specifically, we did, virtual trade show last year. I think a lot of companies ended up doing something very similar.
Right.
So a lot of retailers are more geared towards that. They don't have to, to eat the cost of going out there, even though it is a benefit of, getting to see everybody after almost 2 years, not being out there. But that, along with TPE being right on top of the PCA event, that that's going to throw a wrench in it. So who knows?
Right. Okay. Awesome. Well, I'd like to thank you guys again for joining us. It's been great hanging out and talking and just learning more about the blend. So thank you again for being on our channel.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yeah. Awesome. And I'll shoot you the winners as soon as we have it. So.
You got it, man. Just hit me up.
All right. Thanks again.